My wife secretly conspired with her brother to sell our family home worth $850, $0 behind my back, then forged my signature to claim I owed her $120, $0 in dividends. Now we're in a legal nightmare fighting over everything. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating, let alone find out she was secretly screwing her brother and plotting to sell our house behind my back. It all started with little things, strange texts, missed calls, her being more secretive than ever, but I brushed it off, thinking I was overreacting. We had been together for over a decade, and I believed we had a solid life. But then I stumbled across something that shattered everything. It was a Thursday evening. I came home earlier than usual because of a meeting that got canceled. I noticed her phone was on the kitchen counter, screen lit up with a message from someone named Alex. It was a simple text, but the tone was intimate, something about meeting up later, can't wait to see you, babe. I froze, my stomach sank. I knew Alex was her brother's name, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Still, the way she kept her phone face down, the sudden nervousness when I got close, it all pointed to something. I decided to dig a little. I checked her recent calls and messages. There were more texts from Alex, flirtatious, suggestive. She'd been hiding her conversations, deleting anything that could give her away. I felt a strange mix of anger and betrayal, but I told myself I'd confront her calmly, get the truth. I didn't want to jump to conclusions without proof. That night, I confronted her. I sat her down in the living room, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who's Alex?" I asked. Her face twitched. She looked surprised, then irritated. She rolled her eyes, scoffing a little. "Oh, that, just my brother. We're close, that's all. You're overthinking it. You always do." But I saw the guilt in her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly. I pressed harder. "You've been texting him a lot lately. Why didn't you tell me?" She snapped back. "It's none of your business. You're just paranoid. Anyway, I've got my own life. Maybe you should mind yours." Her tone was bitchy, dismissive, as if I was the one invading her privacy. But I wasn't done. I told her I knew about the affair, I knew about the texts, and I wanted the truth. That's when she finally broke down, lying about how they were just innocent chats, how she never meant for me to find out, how it was just a mistake. She spun a web of lies about how she loved me, how I was the only one, but her words felt hollow, rehearsed. That's when I realized this wasn't just about the affair. It was about money, control, and outright deception. I remembered how she'd been acting strange, secretive about the bank accounts, the way she'd been pressuring me to sign papers I didn't understand. Turns out she'd been secretly conspiring with her brother to sell our family home worth $850, $0, behind my back. I found documents, emails, even a forged signature on a transfer form. She forged my name to claim I owed her $120, $0 in dividends from some fake investment she'd cooked up. All of it done in secret, all to line her pockets and cut me out. I felt numb. My head was spinning. I'd worked hard for that house, for everything we built together. And here she was, conspiring with her brother, lying, cheating, stealing. I didn't know whether to be more furious or heartbroken. I started to piece together the extent of her betrayal. She'd been lying about everything, her affair, the money, her plans to screw me over. It was like I'd been living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her manipulations. The betrayal hit hard, more than the affair, more than the money. It was the fact that I had trusted her for so long, only to find out she'd been planning her escape, her own version of a betrayal that cut deeper than I thought possible. I never saw it coming, and now I was left with a mess I didn't even know how to start cleaning up. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a train. My head was pounding, and the weight of everything hit me all at once. I couldn't believe how deeply I'd been played. I kept replaying her lies, her dismissive attitude, the way she had spun her web of deception. It was like I was living someone else's nightmare. But I knew I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. I had to get to the bottom of this fast. I started digging through her emails and bank statements. She had been meticulous, covering her tracks well, until I found that email thread from her brother. It was a series of messages discussing the sale of the house. They had already drafted the paperwork, and she was planning to transfer ownership behind my back. The house was worth about $850, $0, and she was trying to keep it all for herself and her brother. I saw the signatures she forged, the fake documents, and the email exchange where she called me an idiot for trusting her. That's when I knew I had to act. I contacted a lawyer immediately. I didn't want to do anything rash, but I knew I had to protect myself and my assets. While I was on the phone, I found more damning evidence. Bank transfers, hidden accounts, even a ledger where she'd been calculating her dividends from the house sale. She was planning to steal everything. I'd worked for our home, our savings, everything. I felt a mix of rage and helplessness. How could she betray me like this? How could she lie so easily? I'd always thought we had a strong marriage, but this was a full-blown conspiracy. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time with proof. I arranged to meet her at our house, knowing she'd be there. When she arrived, I pulled out the documents I'd collected, printouts of her emails, the forged signature, the bank statements. Her face turned white. She tried to deny everything, but I cut her off. "You've been planning this, haven't you? Selling the house behind my back, forging my signature, and lying about the dividends. How long has this been going on?" She stammered, trying to deny it, but her eyes darted around nervously. Her voice cracked as she said, "You don't understand. I did it for us, for the future. You're just too stupid to see it." That's when I lost it. I told her I'd had enough of her lies, her manipulations. I told her I was done trusting her and that I was going to fight this legally. I could. Believe she'd gone so far, plotting to steal our home, lying, cheating, and then trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the crazy one. As I sat there, furious and betrayed, I realized how much I had loved her, how much I had sacrificed, only to be betrayed in the worst way possible. I felt a deep sadness, too, like I'd lost the person I thought I knew. But I also knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to stand my ground, protect what was mine, and make sure she paid for what she did. In the days that followed, I contacted a lawyer, a forensic accountant, and a private investigator. I wanted to gather every piece of evidence possible. I also started documenting everything: her lies, her secret meetings with her brother, the forged signatures, the financial transactions. It was a shock to realize how deep her deception ran, how she'd been planning her escape for months, maybe longer. Every new revelation made me angrier, but it also made me more determined to fight back. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, pretending to be the loving wife, the victim of my supposed paranoia. But I saw through it. I knew her game. She was trying to spin it so that I'd be the villain, the one responsible for destroying our marriage, but I refused to be played anymore. I was done being blind. I was done being a victim of her lies. I had to take control of the situation, even if it meant tearing everything apart first. I knew this was just the beginning of a long, messy battle, but I was ready to face it head-on. Over the next few days, my world kept collapsing around me. Each new piece of evidence I uncovered only confirmed what I'd suspected. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. Her secret meetings with her brother, the forged signatures, the hidden accounts, the fake documents, everything pointed to a carefully orchestrated scheme to take everything I had built. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I remember sitting at my kitchen table one morning, going through the emails I'd printed out. Her tone was cold, calculating. She'd been telling her brother about how easy it was to manipulate me, how I was too trusting, too naive. She called me an idiot more than once. The realization hit me hard. I'd been blinded by love, but she'd been using that love against me. She played the innocent wife while secretly plotting her escape. I knew I had to act fast. I reached out to my lawyer again, explaining everything I'd found. We discussed my options: filing for a legal injunction to freeze her accounts, stopping the sale of the house, and starting the process of getting my name back on all the documents. It was complicated, but I was determined. I also hired a forensic accountant to track her financial transactions. I wanted to see exactly how much money she'd taken, how much she owed me, and what she was trying to hide. Meanwhile, she was still trying to maintain her image. She'd come home pretending everything was normal, acting like I was overreacting. She'd smile, try to kiss me, act like she cared. But I saw through her act now. I saw the desperation in her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. I knew she was trying to manipulate me into backing down, into trusting her again. But I wasn't falling for that, not anymore. One night I caught her sneaking around the house with her brother. They were in the study, whispering. I listened from the hallway, heart pounding. They were discussing the final details of the house sale, how to transfer the deed, how to split the money. That was the moment I decided I had enough. I confronted her the next morning, laying out everything I'd overheard. Her face twisted in anger, denial, and panic all at once. She started to scream, telling me I was crazy, that I was paranoid, that I was ruining everything. She accused me of snooping, of being paranoid, of ruining her plans. But I had enough. I told her I was done trusting her lies, that I was going to bring everything into the open. I told her I was going to fight her in court, and I was going to expose her for the thief and liar she really was. That's when she snapped. She called me a jealous, insecure fool, said I was overreacting because I was afraid of losing her. She spun her usual lies, how she loved me, how she'd never do anything to hurt me, how. All of this was just a misunderstanding, but I didn't buy it anymore. I saw her for what she was, a manipulative, deceitful woman who'd been planning her escape for months. I realized I had been a fool for trusting her so blindly. I started preparing myself emotionally. The betrayal cut so deep I didn't know how I'd ever recover. I felt like I'd lost my partner, my best friend, my whole life. But I also knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her ruin me, not without a fight. I had to stand up for myself, for what I deserved. I couldn't let her walk away with everything, not after everything she'd done. So I kept gathering evidence, consulting with professionals, and planning my next move. I knew this wasn't going to be easy, but I was determined. I wasn't going to let her destroy my life and get away with it. I'd fight for my rights, for the truth, and for the dignity I still had left. Deep down, I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful battle, but I also knew I'd come out of it stronger, whether she liked it or not. The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations, secret meetings with my lawyer, and endless nights of trying to process everything. Every time I thought I had a handle on what was happening, something else would come crashing down. She kept up her act, acting like the perfect wife in front of friends and family, but behind closed doors, she was panicked, trying to cover her tracks. I could see it in her eyes. She was desperate. I had to be strategic. If she was planning to sell the house, I needed to stop her before she signed anything else. I contacted the bank, put a hold on all accounts related to the property, and filed for an emergency court order to freeze the sale. It was a long shot, but I had to try. Meanwhile, I instructed my lawyer to dig deeper into her financial transactions. I needed to know exactly how much she'd taken, how much she owed me, and whether she'd hidden any other assets. She was furious when she found out I'd gone to the bank and the court. She threw a fit, claiming I was ruining her life, that I was overreacting. She called me paranoid, accused me of spying on her, and even tried to gaslight me into thinking I was imagining things. Her voice was bitchy and dismissive, like I was some jealous lunatic, but I didn't care anymore. I had seen enough. Her lies, her manipulation, they were all too obvious now. One night, I caught her in the act again. I was walking past the study when I overheard her whispering on the phone with her brother. Their voices were hushed, but I could make out enough to realize they were finalizing the details of the house transfer. I paused, listening carefully. That was the moment I knew I had to act fast. I snapped a quick picture of her on the phone, then went straight to my lawyer. The next morning, I handed over the evidence. We filed a motion for an injunction to stop any sale or transfer of the property and demanded an immediate court hearing. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I could still salvage what was left of my life. But I also knew this was just the beginning. She had already forged my signature on documents, and I suspected she'd been lying about her finances. Months. My mind was racing with questions. How far would she go? Would she really try to take everything I owned? I realized that I'd been a fool for trusting her. All those years, all the sacrifices I made, and this was how she repaid me, by betraying me, stealing from me, and lying to my face. I felt a mixture of rage and despair, but I also knew I had to keep my cool. Losing my temper wouldn't help. I had to stay smart, stay composed, and keep fighting. I started to plan my next steps. I reached out to a private investigator to see if I could find any other hidden assets or accounts she'd kept secret. I also talked to a forensic accountant to trace her financial trail. Every new discovery made me angrier, but it also strengthened my resolve. I wasn't going down without a fight. I'd expose her for what she really was, a liar, a thief, a manipulator. Meanwhile, she kept trying to spin her story. She'd burst into tears, claim she loved me, say she was doing it all for our future. But I saw through her act. Her tears were fake, her words hollow. She was just trying to keep me from discovering the full extent of her betrayal. I knew she was panicking, desperate to save herself. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I had evidence, I had a plan, and I was ready to take her to court. This whole ordeal was tearing me apart. I'd been betrayed in ways I never thought possible, but I also knew I had to be strong for myself, for the life I still wanted to save. I couldn't let her win, not after everything. I'd fight with everything I had, and I'd make sure she paid for every lie, every betrayal. This was far from over, but I was done being the victim. It was time to take control and fight back. The courtroom hearings came faster than I expected, and everything moved with brutal speed. My lawyer managed to get the court to impose a temporary restraining order on her, preventing her from selling or transferring the house or any other assets. It was a small victory, but I knew it was just the beginning. She was furious, of course. Her bitchy attitude only intensified as she realized I was serious about fighting back. She started throwing more accusations, calling me paranoid, saying I was trying to ruin her reputation, claiming I was controlling and possessive. She slammed doors, yelled at me in front of friends, and even tried to turn my own family against me. But I refused to back down. Every lie she told, I had proof to counter it. Every desperate attempt to manipulate the situation only made me more determined. Behind the scenes, I was working with my lawyer and investigators. We uncovered more evidence of her financial deception, hidden accounts, offshore transfers, and additional forged signatures. She'd been trying to drain our joint accounts for months, hiding money in her brother's name, and funneling cash out of the country. I was stunned at how deep her deception went. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about a full-blown financial scheme to leave me with nothing. One night, I finally confronted her directly. I told her I had enough evidence to take everything: house, savings, any assets she'd secretly acquired. I told her that I was prepared to go all the way in court to get justice. Her reaction was a mixture of panic and rage. She screamed at me, calling me a jealous fool, accusing me of ruining her life just because I dared to fight for what was rightfully mine. She tried to gaslight me, saying I was paranoid and possessive, that she never cheated, never conspired, and that I was just jealous of her brother. But I'd had enough of her lies. I told her she'd pushed me to the brink, that I knew the truth, and I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything. Her bitchy attitude only made me angrier. She was trying to guilt me, spin stories, manipulate everyone around her. But I wasn't buying it anymore. The next step was taking her to court. We filed a detailed complaint accusing her of forgery, financial fraud, conspiracy, and breach of trust. I wanted her held accountable, not just for the house but for the years of lies and manipulation. I knew this would be messy, expensive, and emotionally draining, but I had no choice. I couldn't let her steal everything I'd worked for. The court date was set and I prepared myself for the worst. I knew she'd try to fight dirty, maybe even lie under oath. But I had mountains of evidence: her emails, bank statements, forged signatures, witness testimonies. I was ready. I knew that the truth was finally on my side, and I was determined to see this through to the end. Throughout this chaos, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, but also a sense of clarity. I realized how much I'd trusted her, how much I'd sacrificed, only to be betrayed in the worst way. But I also understood that I had to stand tall, fight for what was right, and rebuild my life from the ashes of her lies. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, but I refused to let her win. Whatever the outcome, I knew I'd come out of this stronger, one way or another. The court date finally arrived, and I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. She showed up with her bitchy smirk, trying to look innocent, but I could see the desperation behind her eyes. Her brother was there too, trying to act confident, but I knew they were both panicked. I had everything laid out: emails, forged signatures, bank statements, witness testimonies. I was ready to finally expose her for what she really was. The hearing was intense. She tried every trick in the book, denying everything, claiming I was jealous or paranoid, spinning stories about how she loved me and how I was ruining her life. But the judge wasn't buying it. When my lawyer presented the evidence, her facade cracked. Her voice trembled as she tried to deny the forged signatures, but the proof was irrefutable. The judge looked at her sternly and ordered her to surrender all the documents, accounts, and the house itself. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. The sale of the house was halted, and she was ordered to return all the money she'd taken. She was also held accountable for the forgery and financial fraud. I felt relief, but also a deep sadness, knowing that the woman I loved had betrayed me so completely. I watched her storm out of the courtroom, furious and defeated, and I felt a strange mixture of vindication and heartbreak. In the aftermath, I started the long process of rebuilding my life. I hired professionals to help me recover what I could from her financial schemes and to clean up the mess she left behind. I also filed for divorce, knowing I could stay married to someone who had lied, cheated, and stolen from me. It was a painful decision, but I knew it was necessary for my sanity and future. Looking back, I realize how blind I was. I trusted her because I believed in us, in our life together. But her betrayal taught me a hard lesson about trust and deception. I learned that appearances can be deceiving, and that even the most bitchy, manipulative people can hide their true nature until it's too late. I also learned that sometimes you have to fight tooth and nail to protect what's yours, even if it costs you everything emotionally. Now I'm slowly moving on. I've cut out the toxic parts of my life and focused on healing. I still feel the sting of betrayal, but I also feel stronger for having faced it head on. If there's one thing I want others to take from my story, it's this: never ignore the red flags and trust your instincts. People can hide their true selves for a long time, but eventually the truth comes out. And when it does, you better be ready to fight for what's rightfully yours. This whole experience has changed me profoundly. It's a brutal, painful lesson, but also a wake-up call. I've learned that no amount of love or loyalty can protect you from someone intent on destroying everything you've built. But I also know that resilience and standing up for yourself are what truly matter. I may have lost some years, some illusions, and a lot of trust, but I gained clarity and strength I didn't know I had. And that, in the end, is what will carry me forward.